All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 19, Lives of the Saints. And we're going to do St. John Damascus. Is it St. John of Damascus or St. John Damascus?
It's St. John of Damascus or St. John Damascene or St. John the Damascene. There's lots of ways they say it. So,
and St. Nicholas.
Yay!
We got an episode for you.
Yes. Yeah. This is a big week. I mean, and we're leaving some saints behind, unfortunately, just for time. You know, St. Porphyrios was yesterday. I would love to cover his life. We've already covered St. Roman Braga, which was also yesterday.
Yeah. Oh, really? I didn't know it was
yesterday was the first day that he was commemorated after he's been canonized. So,
wow.
Yesterday was his name day. But yeah, today is
Roman.
Or tomorrow is St. John Damascene. St. John of Damascus.
Proclus today.
Proclus today, yes, that's correct. And then Friday is St. Nicholas. It's a big week. Oh, Joy's here. Steven's here. Joy. Welcome. Hello. Yeah, let me look. Philothea is Saturday, which we already covered. The life of Philothea.
That's
beautiful
the little
life.
Girl with the basket, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I remember.
Yeah, I remember. So that's her name is Saturday. Yeah, it's Saturday. And then St. Ambrose is Saturday as well. So
where are you looking, Jeremy?
I'm looking. Oh, yeah, sure.
Screen?
Sorry. Let's
share your secret screen, Jeremy.
Okay, I'm working on it. Wow. Let me close all these other screens. I'm just kidding. Let's see. Present. Share screen. Where was it? Yeah, I was looking on here. So I frequently use the OCA, so the Orthodox Church of America website, OCA Saints Lives, and you can just go through day by day and see who the saints are. So Nicholas is Friday. So we'll start with today. Prophet Zephaniah, Venerable Saba. Excuse me, Saint Theodulus, Venerable John the Silent of Saint Saba's Monastery. So there's lots of lives of saints. Like some days there's only one or two. Some days there's like 10 or 15. It's so that's just today. I would recommend this website because they're generally fairly short and you can fit it into your morning pretty easily or into your evening. You know, this is honestly a really good way to prepare for prayer is by reading the lives of the saints. I have found it.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I have found it to be really good. Kind of gets you in the right prayerful state, you know?
Right.
So, because I'm not in that state very often. So anyway, this is where I come, and I was just looking through day by day the list. Sometimes we pull from saints, not during the week. Sometimes we're just pulling other lives as well. But this week, they're both this week. So we have St. John of Damascus and St. Nicholas, the Wonder Worker. Both of them are very widely known.
Stephen says reading them is prayer, perhaps.
Yeah, it's a good entry into prayer. Yeah, my priest calls it the applied gospel. It's basically the lives of the saints are how we see the gospel, like what theosis looks like in the life of a particular person, in the lives of particular people. It's beautiful. And we're glad you're here. We're glad you're here sharing with us and learning more about them and listening to my mediocre reading voice.
It's not mediocre. It's good.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. It's a true joy for me.
Yeah.
And we generally start with prayer. We didn't have time to pray beforehand. I will say a prayer real quick. Illumine our hearts, O Master, who lovest mankind with the pure light of thy divine knowledge. Open the eyes of our mind to the understanding of thy gospel teachings. And plant also in us the fear of thy blessed commandments, that trampling down all carnal desires, we may enter upon a spiritual manner of living, both thinking and doing such things as are well-pleasing unto thee. For thou art the illumination of our souls and bodies, O Christ our God, and unto thee we ascribe glory, together with thy Father, who is from everlasting, and thine all holy good and life-giving Spirit, both now and ever and unto ages of ages. Amen.
Amen.
All right. And
Thanks.
with that, now we're ready. When you're ready. If you're ready, we're ready.
We're ready.
Okay. Venerable John of Damascus. Just for a little context, St. John of Damascus is known for a couple of really prominent things. One is the Ladder of Divine Ascent, which a lot of people read either during Nativity or they read it during Great Lent. And it's basically 30 chapters on how to overcome your passions and experience theosis. And it's a 30, each chapter is a step, and it addresses a particular passion or a sin. And it's a very beautiful text. It's one that you can read over and over and over again and never get to the bottom of it, because it just keeps opening up to you. So he was a monastic and was very highly renowned for that. And then he also wrote in defense of the icons for the Seventh Ecumenical Council. So he was the one who wrote, laying out the case from all of the church fathers on why we venerate icons and why it's been a part of the practice of the church since the apostles. So those are his two most widely known things. However, there's some beautiful details in his story. St. John of Damascus was born about the year 680 at Damascus, Syria, into a Christian family. His father, Sergius Mansur, was a treasurer at the court of the Caliph. The Caliph was like the governor. John had also a foster brother, the orphaned child Cosmas, whom Sergius had taken into his own home. When the children were growing up, Sergius saw that they received a good education. At the Damascus slave market, he ransomed the learned monk Cosmas of Calabria from captivity and entrusted to him the teaching of his children. The boys displayed uncommon ability and readily mastered their courses of the secular and spiritual sciences. After the death of his father, John occupied ministerial posts at court and became the city prefect. In Constantinople at that time, the heresy of iconoclasm had arisen and quickly spread. Supported by the Emperor Leo III of Isaurian, rising up in defense of the Orthodox veneration of icons, the Iconodulia, St. John wrote 3 treatises entitled Against Those Who Revile the Holy Icons. The wise and God-inspired writings of St. John enraged the emperor. Since the author was not a Byzantine subject, the emperor was unable to lock him up in prison or to execute him. The emperor then resorted to slander. A forged letter to the emperor was produced, supposedly from John, in which the Damascus official was supposed to have offered his help to Leo in conquering the Syrian capital. This letter and another hypocritically flattering note were sent to the Saracen Caliph by Leo the Isaurian. The Caliph immediately ordered that St. John be removed from his post, that his right hand be cut off, and that he be led through the city in chains. Mm-hmm. That same evening, they returned the severed hand to St. John. The saint pressed it to his wrist and prayed to the most holy Theotokos to heal him so that he could defend the Orthodox faith and write once again in praise of the most pure Virgin and her son. After a time, he fell asleep before the icon of the Mother of God. He heard her voice telling him that he had been healed and commanding him to toil unceasingly with his restored hand. Upon awakening, he found that his hand had been attached to his arm once more. Only a small red mark around his wrist remained as a sign of the miracle. Later, in thanksgiving for being healed, St. John had a silver model of his hand attached to the icon, which became known as of the 3 hands. Some unlearned painters have given the Mother of God 3 hands instead of depicting the silver model of St. John's hand. The icon of the 3 hands is commemorated on June 28th and July 12th. When he learned of the miracle, which demonstrated John's innocence, The caliph asked his forgiveness and wanted to restore him to his former office, but the saint refused. He gave away his riches to the poor and went to Jerusalem with his stepbrother and fellow student Cosmas. There, he entered the monastery of Saint Sava the Sanctified as a simple novice. It was not easy for him to find a spiritual guide because all the monks were daunted by his great learning and by his former rank. Only one very experienced elder, who had set the skill to foster the spirit of obedience and who had the skill to foster the spirit of obedience and humility in a student, would consent to do this. The elder forbade John to do anything at all according to his own will. He also instructed him to offer to God all his labors and supplications as a perfect sacrifice, and to shed tears which would wash away the sins of his former life. Once he sent the novice to Damascus to sell baskets made at the monastery, and commanded him to sell them at a certain inflated price, far above their actual value. He undertook the long journey under the searing sun, dressed in rags. No one in the city recognized the former official of Damascus, for his appearance had been changed by prolonged fasting and ascetic labors. However, St. John was recognized by his former house steward, who bought all the baskets at the asking price, showing compassion on him for his apparent poverty. One of the monks happened to die, and his brother begged St. John to compose something consoling for the burial service. But St. John refused for a long time. But out of pity, he yielded to the petition of the grief-stricken monk. It didn't mention this detail in this version of his life, but his elder had forbid him from writing anything.
Oh, okay.
He was not allowed to write at all. His elder said, "Don't write." So that's why he refused to do it. St. John refused for a long time, but out of pity, he yielded to the petition of the grief-stricken monk and wrote his renowned funeral troparia, "What earthly delight, all human vanity, and others." For this disobedience, the elder banished him from his cell. John fell at his feet and asked to be forgiven, but the elder remained unyielding. All the monks began to plead for him to allow John to return, but he refused. Then one of the monks asked the elder to impose a penance on John and to forgive him if he fulfilled it. The elder said, "If John wishes to be forgiven, let him wash out all the chamber pots in the lavra and clean the monastery latrines with his bare hands." John rejoiced and eagerly ran to accomplish his shameful task. After a certain while, the elder was commanded in a vision by the all-pure and most holy Theotokos to allow St. John to write again. When the Patriarch of Jerusalem heard of St. John, he ordained him priest and made him a preacher at his cathedral. But St. John soon returned to the Lavra of St. Sava, where he spent the rest of his life writing spiritual books and church hymns. He left the monastery only to denounce the iconoclasts at the Constantinople Council of 754. They subjected him to imprisonment and torture, but he endured everything, and through the mercy of God he remained alive. He died in about the year 780, more than 100 years old. St. John of Damascus was a theologian and a zealous defender of orthodoxy. His most important book is The Fount of Knowledge. The third section of his work on the Orthodox faith is a summary of Orthodox doctrine and a refutation of heresy. Since he was known as a hymnographer, we pray to St. John for help in the study of church singing.
Wow.
There's also a section in his book called the Philosophical Chapters, and I have found it to be invaluable in understanding some of the other writings of church fathers, because it's basically like an introduction to Greek philosophy through the lens of Christianity or through the lens of St. John of Damascus. It's really, really great.
What's the name of it again?
The Philosophical Chapters.
Okay.
So let me I'll pull up the book on Amazon. St. John of Damascus. Yeah, this book, The Fount of Knowledge, is where it is. Let me share it here. Right here. So the Fount of Knowledge. This has the Fount of Knowledge, and so within the Fount of Knowledge, it has the philosophical chapters, on heresies and on the Orthodox faith. It's also called an exact exposition of the Orthodox faith, which is basically a catechism.
Right. Okay.
But the philosophical chapters helped me so much in understanding what they're talking about when they're talking about substance and essence and energies and being and what it means to be, and living and spirit and body and all of those things. So good. Very good. Very helpful.
Stephen says John wraps up the patristic era.
Yeah. And he's known for basically systematizing the church fathers in that he went through and like summarized their works. Like a lot of his work was just kind of gathering what the saints had said about different topics and putting it together, especially with icons. That's what he did. He just went through all the church fathers and like shared what they said about the icons and venerating icons. So that's that.
That's great.
Yeah. And now we'll do Saint Nicholas, because this is the month of December, and you've got some fun things to share with that as well.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. I've also been asked to dress as Saint Nicholas in my local parish celebration of Saint Nicholas' name day. So on Friday we're having a divine liturgy, and after the liturgy we're having a brunch, and Saint Nicholas is going to make an appearance at the brunch, and I will be dressed as Saint Nicholas. So
Stephen says about Saint John of Damascus, he melded Isaac the Syrian and Maximus Confessor. Wow.
Yes. Yep.
He's an integrator.
Yep. I
was at his tomb last year. Wow.
Wow. That's beautiful.
Well, you can tell us about it in a minute, Stephen. When you
jump in. And the Ladder of Divine Ascent is another great.
I've heard so much about that, and I've never read it.
Oh, it's really good.
Really you're at Nicholas's. Oh, he was at Nicholas's.
Oh, at St. Nicholas. Oh, nice. Okay. Ready for St. Nicholas? Let's do it.
Let's do it.
St. Nicholas, the wonder worker, Archbishop of Myra in Lycia, is famed as a great saint, pleasing unto God. He was born in the city of Patara in the region of Lycia on the south coast of the Asia Minor Peninsula, what we would call Turkey, and was the only son of pious parents Theophanes and Nona, who had vowed to dedicate him to God. As the fruit of the prayer of his childless parents, the infant Nicholas, from the very day of his birth, revealed to people the light of his future glory as a wonder worker. His mother Nona, after giving birth, was immediately healed from illness. The newborn infant, while still in the baptismal font, stood on his feet 3 hours without support from anyone, thereby honoring the Most Holy Trinity. St. Nicholas, from his infancy, began a life of fasting, and on Wednesdays and Fridays, he would not accept milk from his mother until after his parents had finished their evening prayers.
Wow.
From his childhood, Nicholas thrived on the study of divine scripture. By day, he would not leave church, and by night he prayed and read books, making himself a worthy dwelling place for the Holy Spirit. Bishop Nicholas of Patara rejoiced at the spiritual success and deep piety of his nephew. He ordained him a reader and then elevated Nicholas to the priesthood, making him his assistant and entrusting him to instruct the flock. In serving the Lord, the youth was fervent of spirit, and in his proficiency with questions of faith, he was like an elder who aroused the wonder and deep respect of believers. Constantly at work and vivacious in unceasing prayer, the priest Nicholas displayed great kind-heartedness towards the flock and towards the afflicted who came to him for help, and he distributed all his inheritance to the poor. There was a great, formerly rich inhabitant of Patara, whom St. Nicholas saved from great sin. The man had 3 grown daughters, and in desperation he planned to sell their bodies so they would have money for food. The saint, learning of the man's poverty and of his wicked intention, secretly visited him one night and threw a sack of gold through the window. When the money With the money, the man arranged an honorable marriage for his daughter. St. Nicholas also provided gold for the other daughters, thereby saving the family from falling into spiritual destruction. In bestowing charity, St. Nicholas always strove to do this secretly and to conceal his good deeds. The Bishop of Patara decided to go on pilgrimage to the holy places at Jerusalem and entrusted the guidance of his flock to St. Nicholas, who fulfilled his obedience carefully and with love. When the bishop returned, Nicholas asked his blessing for a pilgrimage to the Holy Land. Along the way, the saint predicted a storm would arise and threaten the ship. St. Nicholas saw the devil get on the ship, intending to sink it and to kill all the passengers. At the entreaty of the despairing pilgrims, he calmed the waves of the sea by his prayers. Through his prayer, a certain sailor of the ship, who had fallen from the mast and was mortally injured, was also restored to health. When he reached the ancient city of Jerusalem and came to Golgotha, St. Nicholas gave thanks to the Savior. He went to all the holy places, worshiping at each one. One night on Mount Sion, the closed doors of the church opened by themselves for the great pilgrim. Going round the holy places connected with the earthly service of the Son of God, St. Nicholas decided to withdraw into the desert, but he was stopped by a divine voice urging him to return to his native country. He returned to Lycia, and yearning for a life of quietude, the saint entered into the brotherhood of a monastery named Holy Sion, which had been founded by his uncle. But the Lord again indicated another path for him. Nicholas, this is not the vineyard where you shall bear fruit for me. Return to the world and glorify my name there. So he left Patara and went to Myra in Lycia. Upon the death of Archbishop John, Nicholas was chosen as Bishop of Myra, after one of the bishops of the council said that a new archbishop should be revealed by God, not chosen by men. One of the elder bishops had a vision of a radiant man who told him that the one who came to the church that night and was first to enter should be made archbishop. He would be named Nicholas. The bishop went to the church at night to await Nicholas. The saint, always the first to arrive at church, was stopped by the bishop. "What is your name, child?" he asked. God's chosen one replied, "My name is Nicholas, master, and I am your servant." After his consecration as archbishop, St. Nicholas remained a great ascetic, appearing to his flock as an image of gentleness, kindness, and love for people. This was particularly precious for the Lycian church during the persecution of Christians under the Emperor Diocletian. Bishop Nicholas, locked up in prison together with other Christians for refusing to worship idols, sustained them and exhorted them to endure the fetters, punishment, and torture. The Lord preserved him unharmed. Upon the accession of St. Constantine as emperor, St. Nicholas was restored to his flock, which joyfully received their guide and intercessor. Despite his great gentleness of spirit and purity of heart, St. Nicholas was a zealous and ardent warrior of the Church of Christ. Fighting evil spirits, the saint made the rounds of the pagan temples and shrines in the city of Myra and its surroundings, shattering the idols and turning the temples to dust. In the year 325, St. Nicholas was a participant in the First Ecumenical Council. This council proclaimed the Nicene symbol of faith, that's the Nicene Creed, and he stood up against the heretic Arius with the likes of Saint Sylvester, the Bishop of Rome, Alexander of Alexandria, Spiridon of Trimithontos, and other fathers of the council. St. Nicholas, fired with zeal for the Lord, assailed the ascetic Arius with his words and also struck him upon the face. For this reason, he was deprived of the emblems of his episcopal rank and placed under guard. But several of the Holy Fathers had the same vision, seeing the Lord himself and the Mother of God returning to him the gospel and omophorion. That's the stole. The fathers of the council agreed that the audacity of the saint was pleasing to God and restored the saint to the office of bishop. Having returned to his own diocese, the saint brought it peace and blessings, sowing the word of truth, uprooting heresy, nourishing his flock with sound doctrine, and also providing food for their bodies. The face of St. Nicholas resembled that of an angel, resplendent with divine grace. A brilliant ray shone from his face, like that which shone from the face of Moses, so that those who looked at him were astonished. Whoever was oppressed by some affliction or passion of the soul had only to behold the saint, and his sorrow was eased at once. As for those who conversed with him, they found themselves, as soon as they found themselves, they soon found themselves advancing on the path of virtue. Not only were the faithful moved to compassion, but unbelievers as well, and they directed their steps on the path of salvation when they heard him speak. The evil of unbelief, which had been implanted in their hearts since childhood, was uprooted, and in its place the word of truth was sown. Even during his life, the saint worked many miracles. One of the greatest was the deliverance from death of 3 men unjustly condemned by the governor, who had been bribed. The saint boldly went up to the executioner and took his sword, already suspended above the heads of over the heads of the condemned. The governor, denounced by Saint Nicholas for his wrongdoing, repented and begged for forgiveness. Witnessing this remarkable event were 3 military officers who were sent to Phrygia by the Emperor Constantine to put down a rebellion. They did not suspect that soon they would also be compelled to seek the intercession of Saint Nicholas. Evil men slandered them before the emperor, and the officers were sentenced to death. Appearing to Saint Constantine in a dream, Saint Nicholas called on him to overturn the unjust sentence of the military officers. He worked many other miracles and struggled many long years at his labor. Through the prayers of the saint, the city of Myra was rescued from a terrible famine. He appeared to a certain Italian merchant and left him 3 gold pieces as a pledge of payment. He requested him to sail to Myra and deliver grain there. More than once, the saint saved those drowning in the sea and provided release from captivity and imprisonment. Having reached old age, Saint Nicholas peacefully fell asleep in the Lord. His venerable relics were preserved incorrupt in the local cathedral church and flowed with curative myrrh, from which many received healing. In the year 1087, his relics were transferred to the Italian city of Bari, where they rest even now. The name of the great saint of God, the hierarch and wonder worker Nicholas, a speedy helper and suppliant for all hastening to him, is famed in every corner of the earth, in many lands and among many peoples. In Russia, there are a multitude of cathedrals, monasteries, and churches consecrated in his name. There is perhaps not a single city without a church dedicated to him. The first Russian Christian prince, Askold, was baptized in 866 by Patriarch Photius with the name Nicholas. Over the grave of Askold, St. Olga built the first temple of St. Nicholas in the Russian church at Kiev. Primary cathedrals were dedicated to St. Nicholas at Izborsk, Ostrov, Mozaisk, and Zarysk. I'm sorry, Eugene. Forgive me. At Novgorod, the Great, one of the main churches of the city, the Nikolo Dorochevsk Church later became a cathedral. Famed and venerable churches and monasteries dedicated to St. Nicholas are found at Kiev, Smolensk, Pskov, Toropetska, Galik. Okay, I'm not going to do the other names, sorry. Moscow had dozens of churches named for the saint, and also 3 monasteries in the Moscow diocese. The Nikola Greek, Sotari, in the Chinese quarter, the Nikola Perevinsk, and the Nikola Ugreshk. One of the chief towers of the Kremlin was named the Nikolsk.
Wow.
Many of the churches devoted to the saint were those established at market squares by Russian merchants, seafarers, and those who traveled by land, venerating the wonder worker Nicholas as a protector of all those journeying on dry land and sea. They sometimes received the name among the people of Nicholas Soaked. Many village churches in Russia were dedicated to the wonder worker Nicholas, venerated by peasants as a merciful intercessor before the Lord for all the people in their work. And in the Russian land St. Nicholas did not cease his intercession. Ancient Kiev preserves the memory about the miraculous rescue of a drowning infant by the saint. The great wonder worker, hearing the grief-filled prayers of the parents for the loss of their only child, took the infant from the waters, revived him, and placed him in the choir loft of the Church of Holy Wisdom, the Hagia Sophia, before his wonder-working icon. In the morning, the infant was found safe by his thrilled parents, praising St. Nicholas, the wonder worker. Many wonder-working icons of St. Nicholas appeared in Russia and came also from other lands. There is the ancient Byzantine embroidered image of the saint, brought to Moscow from Novgorod, and the large icon painted in the 13th century by a Novgorod master. Two depictions of the wonder worker are especially numerous in the Russian church. St. Nicholas of Zoroastrian, portrayed in full length with his right hand raised in blessing and with a gospel. His image was brought to Razan in 1225 by the future wife of Prince Theodore, the Byzantine princess Eupraxia, who perished in 1237 with her husband and infant son during the incursion of Batu. And St. Nicholas of Mozhesk, also in full stature, with a sword in his right hand and a city in his left. This recalls the miraculous rescue of the city of Mozhesk from the invasion of enemies through the prayers of the saint. It is impossible to list all of the grace-filled icons of St. Nicholas or to enumerate all his miracles. St. Nicholas is the patron of travelers, and we pray to him for deliverance from floods, poverty, or any misfortunes. He has promised to help those who remember his parents, Theophanes and Nona. St. Nicholas is also commemorated on May 9th, the transfer of his relics, and on July 29th, his nativity. In Italy, the relics of St. Nicholas are in the Roman Catholic Basilica of St. Nicholas in Bari, and his left arm is in St. Nicholas Roman Catholic Church of Rimini. In Russia, relics of St. Nicholas are to be found in Christ the Savior Cathedral in Moscow and in the St. Alexander Nevsky Lavra in St. Petersburg. The right hand of St. Nicholas is in the Church of St. George the New in Bucharest, Romania. In Greece, portions of the saint's relics are in the monasteries of St. Nicholas Apobathia in Euboea and Phaneromene in Salaminos. A piece of the saint's left arm is in the Metropolitan Church of Volos, and one of the saint's teeth is at Calabrita Monastery in the Peloponnesos.
Well, you had a
that was a challenge. Yeah, I didn't get all of them, but we did our best. My
poor you, Jeremy.
My rural Utah tongue is not accustomed to some of these
Did
words.
a big world travel there.
Yeah, I mean, I've traveled a lot, but I didn't spend much time learning languages. So, forgive me for my pronunciation, Eugene.
I'm always really impressed with your pronunciation. Actually, it's quite good.
Oh well, thank you. I do my best. I try to at least be respectful, and it helps that I give a ride to church to a woman who's from Russia, so I get to hear the way she says some of the cities. So I try to remember
the thickness. So. Yeah. I'm just trying to think of so when Jeremy told me that we were doing St. Nicholas because his name day is on Friday, I said, "Oh yeah, it is in Switzerland too. It's actually a really big deal in Switzerland." And then I shared some videos with Jeremy about it. And Jeremy, since you're so tech savvy.
Ha. Okay, I'll do my best. I will do my best too. Okay.
So I'll just give maybe that article first.
Oh, sure, yeah.
It's kind of explains things. And then I'm just dropping you one more link here that I watched yesterday, which was really cool.
Okay. Well, I will present the article first. This is great. Yeah, I enjoyed you sharing this with me. I enjoyed learning about it. This is great. All you need to know about the Swiss, you say it.
Sammy Klaus.
There we
Sammy
go.
Klaus.
Sammy Klaus. Sammy Klaus. I
Yeah.
can't do that one very well. Okay. You may be wondering why the man in red is already walking through the Swiss streets. While he may look similar to the North Pole Santa that secretly delivers presents on the night of the 24th, Sammy Klaus. Sammy. Oh, you do it. You do it.
Sammy Klaus.
Sammy Klaus, who personally visits the children in Switzerland earlier in December, is an entirely different person. Here's all you need to know about Sammy Klaus, and this is for adult eyes only. Don't tell the kids. I like the friends too. This is great.
Yeah.
This is good. Who is Sammy Klaus? Not Santa, but they do both derive from the compassionate work of Nicholas von Myra, a bishop from 4th century known for helping the poor. You can read about it here, which we just did.
Mm-hmm.
When does he come? You will see Sammy Klaus popping up all over the place during the beginning of December, but his special day is December 6th, the feast day of St. Nicholas. Where can I find him? You will see him out and about at Christmas markets in cities and towns, but also at organized events. Some local villages organize events in the forest. Some have parades. Some have Sammy Klaus parades from house to house, and some villages allow you to order him to come for a visit to your home. Sammy Klaus may also visit schools, playgroups, and childcare facilities around the 6th of December. What can I expect? Well, if you invited him into your home or have arranged to visit him in the forest, there is a chance you will be asked to provide some details about your kids and what they did good and bad this year. Our Sammy Klaus asks for information such as what grade the kids are in, who their teacher is, their favorite foods, in addition to what they did good and not so good in the past year. During his visit, who begins with the sound of a bell ringing, Sammy Klaus will refer to his book with his notes and chat to the kids. If he visits your home, a donation to keep his costume in top shape is always appreciated. If you see him in the streets, he may just ask if your kids have learned a poem, a Sammy Klaus
Sprüchli,
or a song to recite for him. Do you know any of those?
I can't remember any. I was trying to remember some.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay. And who is his friend here? His sinister friend. Sammy Klaus is often accompanied by at least one friend called you say it. Schmutzli. Dressed in a dark cloak with soot on his face, there are many tales about Sammy Klaus's friend. Some say he used to take the naughty kids away to the forest. The more modern spin is he is just a helpful friend. I like the older version.
Yeah, the old version is terrifying.
Yeah. Don't be naughty or you're going to get dragged into the forest.
Yeah.
If this is your first visit, warn your kids ahead of time because he looks quite intimidating. Mm-hmm. What does he bring? Unlike the Santa we know growing up in the English-speaking world and with whom Sammy Klaus is often confused, Sammy Klaus doesn't bring a whole lot of presents, but rather a
Klausäckli.
Klausäckli?
Säckli. A säckli.
Oh, Klausäckli.
A little Klaus bag. Bag.
Okay. Filled with mandarins, unshelled peanuts, chocolates, cookies, and gingerbread. Some families may add in a small present, but this was a new tradition. He also may give out a
Grittibans. It's a little
Grittibans.
It's a bread, but it's in the shape of a boy, a little boy.
Oh, okay. Like a little gingerbread man.
Yeah, but it's made with bread. Sweet
bread. Yeah. Okay. Where does he live? No, not at the North Pole. Remember, he isn't Santa. Sammy Klaus makes his home in the forest. What is a
Sammy Klaus Sprüchli?
Wherever you meet Sammy Klaus, whether that's in your home or in the forest or on the street, he will ask your kids if they have a Sprüchli or poem prepared for him. They may learn one in school, or there is plenty of inspiration on the internet. I am always amazed how year after year my hubby can find another poem for the kids to learn, and within days they can say it off by heart. Even little Z, with some help of pictures, knows hers and is ready for Santa Claus visit. Don't speak German? Get your kids to sing an English Christmas song. Looking for a Sprookly? Check out these.
Yeah, check
They're
those
probably
out.
in. All right, let's look.
We'll see if they're in English or in German.
They're in German. The link is broken.
Okay, it's never mind. It's fine.
So,
yeah.
Anyway, that's great. I love this tradition. This is good.
So
I think Austria has something similar.
Probably, yeah. It's an interesting mix of old pagan beliefs and Christian, the feast days, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what's so interesting about Santa Claus is that it's celebrated even in the Protestant cantons of Switzerland. So you would expect the Catholic cantons to celebrate Saint Nicholas, but it's everywhere. Like they were saying in the story that you read, how it's spread to all corners of the world, really.
Yeah.
Which
it's similar with St. George's name day. That's celebrated in all kinds of countries. Even Muslim countries celebrate St. George's name day.
Wow. Yeah. So, it's quite, I know the Netherlands has a rich tradition of Sinterklaas, and and most of the German-speaking European world that I know of, I don't know very much of the Latin-speaking, like France and Italy and stuff. But they all celebrate Saint Nicholas. Santa Claus is on the 6th of December, and there is no Santa Claus on Christmas Eve.
Yeah,
I mean, it's unfortunately America has colonized the whole world. So, like when I lived in Switzerland, there was no Halloween. They don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
But now they had All Saints Day, but they didn't have Halloween. And now there's a Halloween thing. People don't really like it. And a lot of the older people wave it away. They don't like the kids coming and stuff.
Yeah.
But fun. And anyway, so there's a couple of videos that I sent. That last one that I sent you, this seems like a really old tradition here.
Okay.
And it's not very long.
Okay, hold on. Let me
show it.
Yeah, and I'll mute my mic so we don't get a weird bleed over. Let me find it here.
And I just wanted to say about it. So before you play it. No, not that one. The last one. I just sent you sent you another one.
Sorry, I got it. Okay. Stop. If you were coming here for a slick prepared technical
not happening.
It's not it. Let's see if I can no, we'll do that. Okay, so it is yep. Okay, that's it. And oops, I forgot to hit share the audio too. Hold on. I got to do that. Well, one more time. If you came here for a nice technical, this is not the show for you. And then I closed the window. That was good. Yeah, that was great. Good job. Okay. We're going to get it. We're going to do it. It's going to work.
It's coming.
It's coming.
It's going to be worth it. It's going to be so worth it.
It's very cool. Okay. Yes. Share tab audio. Good. Okay. It's on. And go ahead. Set it up for us.
Okay. So these gentlemen in white are ringing giant cowbells. And there's a lot of festivals in Switzerland where you're ringing in or out different seasons or different spirits of different seasons. And so to ring in Saint Nicholas, you ring out the evil spirit of winter. Although it's right.
Yep. Makes total sense.
Okay. So
that's why they ring the bells at the beginning of church service in some churches. It's to chase the demons away. They ring them all day long when people are getting baptized.
Okay.
To chase the demons away.
Yeah, and it's a big thing in Switzerland, the bell ringing thing. And these guys are not, what you'd normally see wearing white robes and marching around in straight lines. These guys
Oh.
are what they call Sana in Switzerland, and they are the guys that look after the cows and make the cheese and milk the cows and bring the milk to the communal village milk hut and all that stuff.
I
Okay.
see. Okay. Oh,
And
that's
that's
good.
why they have the bells, because they have the cows.
Ah.
These bells
Ah.
these bells are huge, and they wear them on the cows only for festivals.
Wow.
Like, they have in different parts of Switzerland, they have these festivals where they march the cows up into the Alps,
Yeah.
and the poor cows have to wear these huge bells, eh? They're just like
Wow.
but anyway,
That's
it's
cool.
pretty impressive.
Yeah. Okay. I will mute and then be right back.
Oh, that's good, Jeremy. Yeah, and then
Oh, that's great.
and then
I
there
like
was
St. Nicholas on the throne, like under the canopy as well. That's very good.
and
Very traditional.
every canton, sometimes every different villages, they all have their own little traditions around St. Nicholas. So there's one other it's the second last one that I sent you there.
Yeah, the whips.
The whips.
Yeah, this was cool. I'm looking forward to your explanation of this one.
Okay, these are called Geisel.
Hold on, let me share it. 1 second. This one. Okay.
Yawn God.
I didn't see what he said.
Looks
It does. It looks great. It's cool. I would love to be a part of that. That looks great.
Well, my husband made this really good point because we were looking at these together last night, and he said, these are the things that hold Swiss society together.
Yes.
Like, they're really the thing that binds.
Yes.
And I mean, people get involved in these they call them Verein, but they're like community-oriented groups that practice for these occasions, right? So like these guys will clip for here. These are special whips, and they're also for whipping out evil spirits, okay, before the thing. And
driving them out of the temple, so to speak.
Yeah, and you'll hear how they start in unison, then they break into like different, and then they go back into unison again. It's a short clip, so you can just play the whole thing.
Sure. I gotta mute myself.
And this is also in connection with St. Nicholas Day. So this is before St. Nicholas enters into the city, right?
I love that one. That's really
a
cool.
good one. That's a fun one. And
Yeah, that's
then
great.
was there another? There was maybe that clip that I made, that short
Yep.
clip,
Yep.
60-second clip.
Yep.
This is another. So this is the inner Swiss cantons of Obwalden and Nidwalden, which basically mean upper woods and lower woods. That's what Nid is low and Op is up, and Wald is forest. And these are like the inside cantons of Switzerland are the oldest. And and this is a very old and particularly famous parade for Santa Claus. And here you'll see them holding up these big lanterns that they make. And
yeah, it's beautiful.
And all that. Yeah. Oh, sorry. They also have the bell ringers in the background. You can hear them. They start up. And then there's St. Nicholas. Little angels in the front. Yes, cherubim. That's right. Yeah. They also have, so there, you're muted, Jeremy, just so you remember. They also have, you'll find this interesting, Sylvester Cloys. There's more than one. And Sylvester, Altus Sylvester, is celebrated on January the 13th. That's the new year. Okay? Traditionally speaking.
Yep.
And that's the Julian calendar. That's very ancient. And there are cantons in Switzerland that have the most fantastic Sylvester clothes. Do you want to see what they look like?
Oh, yeah.
And these guys, I mean, okay, so talking about these groups of people that get, that hold these traditions, these guys get together all year. They practice for this. They make their own costumes.
Wow.
Yeah. And I know this is not in direct connection with St. Nicholas, but let me just find you a couple of short videos to see. And they basically just go around. Like, I remember the first time I saw them, they came to our house.
Wow.
And they come at like 1 o'clock in the morning on New Year's Eve.
Yeah,
right?
on Roman New Year's Eve, yeah.
Yeah. And they, I look out the window and there's this group of men dressed in these amazing costumes. The ones in Zurich are different than the ones I'll show you here. And they wear these hats that are lit with candles, and they've got these motifs on them, and they're wearing bells, and they're dancing, and they're really loud. They're just,
wow, that's amazing. Next week we'll cover St. Lucy's name day, because in the Latin world, St. Lucia, St. Lucy, has a lot of similar ceremonies that you're showing us, like in Switzerland for St. Nicholas. They do that for St. Lucy.
Yeah.
So like my friend went on a Mormon mission to Italy, and he found the whole ceremony, like they had a whole procession through the city where he lived of St. Lucia, going through the city and then into, it was like a little 12-year-old girl that they dress up like St. Lucia, and she's walking through the whole city on a procession, and they're singing all the songs, and then they get into the church and there's beautiful service. So he says very moving. So I'll look up some of that during the week. We'll cover that next week. It'll be fun.
Okay. Yeah, there's a really great video on YouTube of a woman singing the song, and she's wearing the hat with the candles and
beautiful,
and all that stuff. Okay, so I'm going to send you this one. You don't have to play the whole thing; it's long.
Okay.
But and this is just probably somebody just made this video in their own little village, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that one. Oh.
All right. Let me share it. Whoops. Oh, did I get that right? Yes. This sharing screen. And it is that one. Yes. Okay. Now I will mute.
So, like I'm just thinking to myself, like, these are traditions pre-schism, right? If they're like this Alta Sylvester has to be, right? Because it's the old calendar, which is just interesting. How did they it's just, anyway, go for it. So this is kind of what it's like in your neighborhood, late at night, and all of a sudden these guys show up. And you have to give them money, when they're done. There's always two of these guys, and they dress like women. Top of your screen isn't visible, someone's saying. Top of your screen isn't visible for some reason.
Say it again. Sorry.
Steven says top of your screen isn't visible.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Let me fix it. Oh, there we go. I'm sorry.
There we go.
Okay. There we go. All right.
Just for a few more minutes or a few more seconds. Once we get all together. See, now the people have to come out of their houses, right? Okay, that's good. Yeah. That's good enough, I think, Jeremy. Can you hear me? Oh, there you go.
Say it again.
I just said that's probably good enough. And
okay.
Then I sent you one more from Appetal to show you some of the older suits. Sometimes they wear wild man suits.
Yeah. Like Green Man kind of stuff.
Yeah, that there's another clip that I sent you in the Discord.
Yep, I pulled it up. Let me pull it
Okay.
up so you can see it.
And then we're done.
Okay. Oh, these are great. I'm loving this. This is great. This is fantastic. Big fan.
And they call you have to put your screen down a bit. That's it.
That's so good. That's so
Isn't
fun. Yeah, this is so great. I love it.
I mean, I have to say, Nate was saying in the panel discussion in medieval times there was too much feasting. Like the one of the criticisms of the Protestant Reformation was there was too much feasting.
Wow.
Well, okay, so I think the reason they didn't like it was because, and they still actually in Switzerland, there's quite a distinct take on the Catholic cantons, because the Catholic cantons in Switzerland have more holidays than the Protestant ones because they have feast days. They have religious, almost all their holidays are feast days. And the Protestant cantons criticize them for they call them lazy Catholics. So this is a medieval criticism that the Protestant Reformation put onto the religious people, the Catholic people of Europe, that they feasted too much. They were lazy. They should be working, right? It's the whole, it goes to that whole idea of Protestant work ethic.
Right. And where your job became your vocation, basically. Like occupation and vocation became the same thing in Protestantism.
We got native today.
Fun.
But what I find so interesting is that there's this idea in Protestantism that's so anti-works oriented, and yet one must work, right? Like it's so weird how the human psychology is,
Yeah.
Like you have this ideal that you're saved by grace and not by works. But then out of that comes the Protestant work ethic. And right. And the idea that feasting is a waste of time, right? You should be working. But anyway, in connection to all of that, what I really wanted to say was Switzerland is full of festivals, like there's just too many of them to list, and they're all very strange like this.
Yeah.
They're just strange.
Yeah, well, I like the idea. I mean, so in that kind of culture, it seems like the idea of, powers and principalities would probably be not so difficult for them to wrestle with, because they encounter these mysteries blasting into their everyday lives at 1 a.m, ringing bells and singing ancient songs.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's what powers and principalities look like. When you see them, it is some mysterious, overwhelming force that comes into your life that you can't understand. there's things you do understand about it, but you see the face of a woman, but it's moving backwards, and it's a man dressed as a woman, and they're singing old chants. And I mean, that, like I said, that's just like, that's a really great representation of powers and principalities smashing into your world. I love it.
They have another one where they that I learned about recently, where they, because it's not in all of Switzerland, it's in a certain mountainous area there, where all the young men dress up as wild men. So they wear like, animal skins, and their faces are hidden. They've got like sackcloth or whatever with just eye holes. They have horns on their heads, and they chase the young women down in the village, and they put them down on the ground, and they blacken their face with this grease mixed with something else, and it's a secret recipe, right? So you have to be part of the group in order to learn it, right? And the girls are all excited, because it's a mating thing.
Sure, of course.
Right? Yeah. They get chosen, and then they get gifted eggs for fertility.
Right. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And they still do these things in Switzerland. And here's the thing that really gets me about that. It's Switzerland is such a modern European country. And yet the people of Switzerland are embedded in all of these very ancient practices, like really embedded, like not just the odd Joe. I'm talking like they have a big festival in Zurich where they build this giant snowman and they explode him in the middle of the city. They light him on fire and he explodes. They have like huge bonfires made out of logs and he's sitting on top of it.
Wow.
It's massive. And then they have this huge parade. There's hundreds of thousands of people in the city for this. And it's to chase out Old Man Winter and welcome in the spring.
I love it. I love it. I think this is the price. One of the prices we've paid as Americans is being deracinated, right? Where we've been ripped from our roots and we don't have ties to these traditions anymore. We don't know.
That's right.
That's totally
right. It's totally right. It's totally right. I mean, these barbarian tribes, they're alive and well in Austria, in Germany, in Switzerland. Yeah.
In Appalachia.
In Scandinavia. And Scandinavia has lots of probably things like this too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I threw a link in for anybody who's interested. So if anybody wants to jump in with us.
And I kind of need to be done in about 45 minutes. So I've got that time to hang out, but then I've got some other things I got to take care of this evening.
Sounds good.
But I would be happy to talk with anybody who wants to come along and talk.
Yes, you can. Absolutely, Slack. There you go. See what happens?
Well, I would lay the blame for the Industrial Revolution at the feet of the Protestant work ethic. I don't know if capitalism per se, but definitely I would lay the Industrial Revolution at the feet of the Protestant work ethic. Yes.
There's a few things we could lay at the feet of the Protestant work ethic, but we won't go too far down that. Go there.
Yeah, apparently when the Industrial Revolution kicked off in England, they had carts that just hauled gin around, and the cities would pay for the gin. It was like free gin because everyone was so depressed and tired and exhausted because they were working, 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, and they were just giving away free gin to keep everyone from rioting.
Malcolm Guyton. Yeah, well, that's what our government's done. They made everything legal. There's a Canadian YouTuber that I watch, and he posted on, YouTube community posts. He posted a picture of someone doing a line of Coke with a plastic straw. And he said, which one of these things is illegal in Canada?
That's funny.
The plastic straw. And it's true. You can get cocaine now in the government cannabis stores and meth
Wow.
and mushrooms, you know. But when you're a shitty leader, you got to keep your population doped up. Otherwise, they, cotton on.
Yeah. Well, I guess if
They totally
you've
do.
already opened the doors to the demons, you might as well just keep opening doors to demons, right? So that's rough. Stephen said same thing in prayers with absinthe. Yeah, comparing it to the gin in London.
Yeah.
I
was going to say Malcolm Guite did a thing.
Yeah, you're right, Joy. We take place and ground for granted. Yeah. No, having a place and ties to ancestors. I come from pioneer stock, which is very different than peasant stock. My people came, like, they just dropped everything in England and were like, yeah, let's build Zion in America. And came and, they converted to Mormonism and traveled all the way here and walked from Missouri to United States or to Utah. My people were pioneers, both sides, my mom and dad's family.
I'm really grateful for my Swiss roots. I'm not born Swiss, but I became Swiss. And because my husband is Swiss, I live in a Swiss environment. I live with a Swiss mentality. I have a Swiss way of seeing the world because of it. And but yeah, like, Joy, my family, like, my grandmother was Finn, her husband was Irish. My other grandfather was French, and my grandmother was Scottish, and somehow 23andMe found a little Basque thrown in there. Don't know if that
the French. The French.
Yeah, well, that grandfather was also Roma.
Yeah. Oh, that's definitely related to Basque. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, I don't know. I'm just embracing it all.
Yeah.
Just gonna embrace it. But,
yeah, actually, in there's a little town where I lived for a while, Elko, Nevada. They have a big Basque population there. They all came to be. They were hired to be sheep herders for the big sheep ranches, and so they have the Basque World Games are in Elko every year, which is really fun. You go in there in the summer. They have the Basque Summer Games. It's like a Olympics for Basque people, basically. It's pretty cool. Yeah. Where they do like the traditional events, picking up the big stone, and they have like throwing the things, and similar to like the Scottish games. It's like the Highland Games, but it's for the Basque people. It's great.
Yeah. Those native games, eh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Picking up stones and heaving them around.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah.
Slack says here, makes sense to me now why people defend it as if a core religious belief. Let's go back to feasting as totally.
Yeah, there's nothing. Okay, so my father-in-law is Turkish. He was Turkish. May he find peace in God's rest. But he came and lived with us for the last 2 years of his life, and he was here for about a month, and we were just alone one day, and he said, I'm going to give you some advice, and I know you didn't ask for any, but I'm an old man, so I'm going to. And I said, okay, Turk, I'd love to hear what you have to say. And he said, you need to eat together with your family as much as possible. He's like, the biggest problem you have in your family is that you don't eat together. And he was right. So we started eating together as a family, eating dinner. And then, my older kids were out of the house. So we started having at least a monthly family dinner where my kids were out of the house and their spouses would come and we would all eat together. And it's been the greatest medicine that we've found as a family. Just there is a power in eating together that ancients understood. It's been part of hospitality, part of traditional culture for most of humanity's history. And, we've forgotten it, at least in my secular peasant areas, or secular pioneer, like uncouth, barbaric places of the world where I live now. But
where do you wipe your nose on your sleeve?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think it's the casualness with which we approach things now, where it's like people don't recognize the value, they don't recognize the importance of eating together. You know,
You
and
know,
I've been pushing for this at work. It's like we should have like a company Christmas dinner. We should have a company like where everybody sits in the same room and we all sit down and we eat together. And the managers are the ones handing out the food. Like this is what needs to happen to keep our company together.
my son's working at a place now where every 2 weeks they cater a meal at lunch for the
Yes.
whole office,
Yes.
and everybody eats together,
Yes.
and they know this, right?
Yep. Yep.
But his boss also has a cabin in the woods somewhere that he gets away to, and he doesn't expect anyone to take their work home.
Yeah. This is
Like,
great. Wow. Yeah.
amazing, right? And these
Yeah.
are secular people, like they're
Yeah.
not religious people. But
Mm.
you know, this reminds me again of that Ted Gioia conversation that I liked so much with Rick Beato when they talked about the fakery pushing people towards the real.
Yep.
And that's exactly what's happening. And interestingly enough, this company is, you know, dealing with AI.
Mm.
Like it's, you know, it's all based on AI solutions for businesses, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And but yeah, anyway,
Mm.
human beings
Yeah,
couldn't
no,
do
it's good. I have to say the same for my boss. He's very respectful of my time outside of work. You know, he has contacted me. I've worked there for 6 years. I think I've been contacted outside of work hours 3 times to address something that needed to be addressed. Maybe 3, maybe only 2. I can't remember a third. I can remember 2 for sure. That's it, right? And he's very respectful and he doesn't expect us to work later than, you know, I don't have to stay late. I don't have to do that. It's like, oh, well, hit it in the morning. No problem. We'll be here. You know, he's never, and I don't have to work from home. But what's beautiful too is even on top of that, like during COVID, when my daughter couldn't go to school, I didn't want my daughter to have to be home alone every day. So I asked
Yeah.
if I could work from home, and he was like, "Yeah, that's great, no problem, no questions asked, no hesitation." You know, so it's really there. Our company is finally waking up to moving back to being people oriented. You know, it was family owned business for like 50 years, and then they sold to a conglomerate, which now just sold to another conglomerate. But it seems like, in spite of that, in spite of being owned by the Borg, the management is actually very people driven. So it's encouraging.
Yeah. Yeah. Joy says convincing one of these folks that the material is all that exists would be like rearranging the deck.
Yeah, you know, that's just it's so silly now. I don't even know what to make of it. Like the
What do you
idea
mean
that
by this, Joy?
this
The Swiss
material is all
man?
that exists.
The
Yeah,
Swiss
the
man?
Swissman in the clips, right? Yeah.
What? I don't get it.
She's saying the Swissman in the clips, trying to convince one of the people in the clips that the material is all that exists.
Oh yeah.
Would be like rearranging the pictures on the Titanic, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like it's futile. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, I agree. It's silly. I still see that. I read an article today by it was an interview with some 30-year-old researcher, what a cognitive scientist dude, and he's just like trying to push for, yeah, well, let's download your consciousness, and if we take a fine enough image of your brain, then we're going to be able to map it. And I was like, okay, look, dude, like if I take a computer program for an old computer and I took it and I put it in my new computer and I try to run it, nothing happens. Right now, I have to build what's called an emulator to run this program. So it's like mapping the old hardware in the program to the new hardware, and something inevitably doesn't hook up quite right. And that's just assuming you could get the program onto a disk in the first place. The program that is you, right? It's like, this is so bonkers, dude. This is so.
Did I ever tell you? Did I ever tell you about that story that I read about the woman in the old folks' home. Did I mention this already once?
No, I don't remember. That
It was
wasn't
on.
enough of a clue to remember.
Okay, well, she's in a hospice. She's dying of liver cancer. It's just a fictional story, okay?
Oh, okay.
And some woman shows up and she's like, "We're going to give you this service for free," and because they're testing their model, and they can make an AI version of her, right? And her children don't have to know that she's dead. That's
yeah.
the idea.
Right.
And so they set up all these cameras in her room, and then she can just type in, onto a laptop, things that she'd like to say to her kids or her grandkids or her, her brother-in-law or whatever. And so she's sitting there all day going, "Oh, what if they find a new boyfriend? What would I say?" Just the thoughts are going through her mind, and she's jotting them down, and it's taking in all her movement and her voice and everything. And then she writes a note to her children that she's going to move to Japan. It's on her bucket list, and she's probably not going to get back to the States to ever see them again. And they got FaceTime and all this stuff, and they'll see each other, right? But she dies. She's actually dead, and she's not in Japan. But her kids think she is. She's trying to spare them, right? Her death. And you've heard this story before, Young God? Or no, I think I've told this story here before. But yeah. And anyway, then her daughter's talking to her on FaceTime, and she's like, "Mom, you have to come home. I need you. I have cancer. You can't just let me die alone." Right? And her mother's like, "Honey, I told you. You'll be fine. I don't have the money. I can't make, and they're FaceTiming. And the girl's just totally distraught. And Eugene. And then this man walks into the FaceTime in a kimono, because they're in Japan, and he leans down to kiss her. And the girl just screams and drops her phone because it's her long dead father, right? So the AI made an oopsie and included the husband in the FaceTime. And so, and that's how the story ends, and I don't know. I read it. I read that. It's just it made an impression on me, what people want to try to do to avoid pain and suffering.
Yeah.
Even if it's the pain and suffering of their own loved ones, right? Like they don't want them to go through it. But anyway, hi, Eugene.
Hi, guys. Am I too late? Am I too late?
No. You were eating an orange. It reminded me of a tradition my great grandmother said they had, where they would put an orange in the stocking of the youngest kid in the family on Christmas. And it was, this is in rural Utah in a tiny little town, and somebody would make the trip to Salt Lake to get oranges to bring to the town, and they would hand out and each family just got one orange. So so the youngest child got an orange, and in the bottom of the stocking, and it represented the son that was returning. So the son comes out of the stocking, but she said I was the youngest, so I got to peel the orange, but then all the kids in the family each got one slice. And she said, so all year long, and she said it was the only orange I got all year, because we couldn't afford oranges, and
they were exotic.
They didn't bring them to this, to our little town. We didn't have them in the store. So she's like, I could just she's like, for weeks before and after, like I had weeks of just anticipating the taste of that orange, because it's like there's nothing like it. And then afterwards, for weeks, it's like we would try to save like little pieces of it and like try to save the juice. And she's just like savoring like the one little piece of orange that I got once a year. It's pretty cool.
My mother.
It's so. Oh, go ahead.
Well, my mother-in-law in Switzerland, she's 90. Oh gosh, she's going to be 94 on the 17th of January, actually, this year. And she came from a really small village in that, that last video with the guys with the hats, Appenzell. And she remembers as a little girl this man that lived in the village, but he went world traveling, which was like, I mean, people from her day, they didn't even go over the hill to the next village. Like they just didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And he came back with and he had bananas, and he gave the kids bananas. But because he had them for so long, they were all brown and spotted and raw, old, bananas. And she told me that story after years of coming. She'd pop in and visit us at the house every now and then when the kids were little. And she would always bring the kids these old bananas. And the kids would be like, Grossmutti brought me an old banana again, Mom. I don't like this. I used to say, just say thank you, and we'll put it in the muesli in the morning or something. And then she told me that story, and I thought, oh, okay, now I know why she's bringing it. Like that was a moment for her, right?
Yeah.
What a memory.
Yeah.
Interesting. I was going to say that how incredibly something tastes when you have not had it for a long time. Because Jeremy, when you started talking about oranges, I mean, in the Soviet days, when I was a little kid, we would get mandarins. Do you call them mandarins or tangerines?
Mandarins.
Mandarins. Yeah, only 1 week before the New Year, before New Year's. And I don't know where they would get, because there were. I mean, it was the stores were empty, almost empty. I mean, you could get just basic stuff, but none of that, exotic things. But somehow, the government was able to send like bunches and bunches of mandarins on the eve of New Year's every New Year's, and we would get like presents. Each kid would get a present, and that was a feast. I mean, really, the taste of you would get it like once or twice a year at most. And so this whole idea of kind of going without, the fasting idea of going without something, and then tasting it, it's like heavenly meal, as opposed to now I can get those I can get those mandarins as often as I can, and they don't taste as well. That's good.
Right. Well, that's one thing that I've taken from Orthodoxy that I just love, that is actually, just completely transformed how I see the world, and that is the cycle of feasting and fasting, right? You can't have a feast without a fast, and that's the problem with America, is that every day is a feast. There is no fast. We're all,
and everyone
we're all like overweight. Like yeah, exactly, right. That's the problem. That every day is a feast, right? We don't know fasting. We don't, like, most Americans haven't been hungry in years. They can't remember the last time they felt hungry. That's bonkers, right? Like, it's just not even human, let alone healthy.
Well, they say that just before lunch, I'm so hungry. Like,
it's been like 2 hours.
I was just talking to a friend about this. Funny that you mentioned it, because I was saying how, because we've grown a garden for so many years, we just had a thing, like, we didn't buy vegetables at the grocery store, even if we wanted them and they weren't coming ready in the garden yet. So, like, we wouldn't eat broccoli until broccoli was ready, and broccoli is ready late, right, in the garden. And so it was like, and I was talking about feasting and fasting with him, and, you all the work that you put into the garden or the crop or the livestock or whatever it is you're going to eat, it all culminates in the harvest. It's not like you don't go and just half kill tie a sheep up and cut its leg off and let it live, and then You're not grocery shopping at the barn, right?
That's a good image. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
really. You
Right.
you have to let it grow, right? It's born in the spring. It grows through the whole summer into the fall. You harvest it,
Yeah.
and then you feast because there's a lot of parts of it that you can't save, and they have to be made into sausage or whatever. So there's a big feast, and then the rest gets stored
Preserved.
for
Yeah.
winter for the fast, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you
Yeah.
have to make it last.
Yeah.
So
That's where the bottling and the canning. Then you have all the bottling and canning parties. Bottling
yeah,
all
and
the
then but
food.
now it's like you can eat broccoli in January, February, March,
Yeah.
April, May, June, July, August.
Right.
We don't eat we never ate broccoli till September, October.
Yeah.
Yes, and a strawberry. I mean, strawberry. How different it tastes when you actually pick it from the garden. Right?
Yeah.
As opposed to you get it in the store. It's just the taste is just entirely
Totally different. Yeah.
Yeah. Same with tomatoes. Oh my gosh. Tomatoes from the store are awful compared to the ones you grow in a garden.
Actually, broccoli from the garden. You know what? Broccoli from the garden tastes like flowers. Like it doesn't taste like broccoli.
Yeah. Same with asparagus. We grow our own asparagus. I love
have that too.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, love it.
All the Mormon pioneers planted that when they came to Utah. It grows in sandy soil, and they would plant it on the irrigation ditches to keep the ditches from washing out. So there's some, like when I was a kid, you would just drive out into the into the farms, and you'd walk along the fence, because the ditches usually ran right along the fence, and you could harvest asparagus that had been there for 100 years, that had been planted by the Mormons, by the Mormon pioneers when they came. It's pretty great. So we have some in our garden as an homage, and because I like it.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, also the whole idea of having seasons, 4 seasons, is also like to create anticipation, a sense of longing for the next season to come.
Yes.
I mean, we've had such a long summer here in Texas this year, and now that we have at least 46 in the morning, it feels so refreshing. I mean, because it's been, the heat has been going on forever. And when we were in Siberia, it was the other way around. It was totally different. It's like we're getting snow in May. What is it? Is the summer going to come or not?
Yeah.
And people talk about that, and it's just the anticipation builds up in the air.
You must miss the seasons.
Well, I do.
Yeah.
We hardly get the autumn, the fall colors. We don't get that here at all.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you caught the first part of the show where I was butchering all the pronunciation of Russian names, because we were talking about Saint Nicholas. Yeah. So tell us about Saint Nicholas Day in Russia.
You mean Nicholas the miracle worker, right?
Yes, yeah.
Nicholas,
December 6th, yeah.
December 6th, yes. Well, I don't remember much about. He's certainly like very revered. As far as his life, I mean, I don't remember it as well as, for instance, Saint Seraphim. I don't know him. Yeah, but I understand he lived in the 14th century. Is that right?
No, like the 4th century.
4th century. Okay.
Yeah, 4th century.
Maybe I'm wrong then. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to go. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No.
I was just going to say you'll have to go back and watch some of the Swiss videos that we shared of the celebration of Saint Nicholas in Switzerland.
Okay.
Because it's also on the 6th of December.
6th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But you grew up in the atheist Soviet Russia, so you didn't even have Christmas, right?
Yeah.
Well, we had sort of. I mean, the Orthodox still had their celebrations.
Oh, they did.
They did. So Easter was there, but nobody actually I mean, most of the population, except you, if you were, unless you were really religious, really, observed that, and we were not.
Hmm.
My mother is a militant atheist up to this day.
Wow.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Interesting. You know, my son's wife, will be wife, they're getting married on the 20th of December.
Mm.
Um, her parent, she was born in the DDR, and like in East Germany.
Mm.
And yeah, and her parents, you know, when was it? 1991 when the wall came down in Berlin?
Yep.
Yes.
91. Yeah. She remembers and my daughter-in-law, she remembers the day she was 4 going on 5, and her aunt came over and she said, "They're taking down the wall." Can you imagine? You're just cooking breakfast and all of a sudden your whole world ended.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
no job, no government, no money, no everything. Like just boom,
Oh.
ended. And when I went there this summer, they took me to a memorial to Russian soldiers who died in the Second World War
Mm.
in Berlin, and it was built by Stalin, right? And it's one of those, you know, those massive Soviet things, like the giant statues and long alley and trees, and then there's all these plaques leading up to the statue with sayings of Stalin on it, you know, and when you come in to the whole thing, and it takes up a huge amount of space, it's massive,
Hmm.
like a stadium size. Okay, you come in and there's this like very modern, I don't know, thing in this shape, and then there's these 2 Russian soldiers that are like huge, and they're kneeling and have their heads bowed. Because it's in honor of all the Russian soldiers who died. And then it leads down at the end to this, you know, big, I don't know, like it looks like a mausoleum, but they had a fire going in there 24/7 that was always lit. And on top of that is another huge Russian statue. Oh, you got it.
Mm.
Here I am with my huge and big.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
this
is huge. I mean, look at the scale. Those are people.
Oh.
That's a big
it's
statue.
and the statue at the end
Modern.
there, see? The one
Mm.
next to it, Jeremy?
Yeah, this one.
Yeah. So they had a flame burning in there, and then this guy's standing on the swastika with a child in his arms, right?
Yeah.
That's it there. And you see the person on the stairs. You see how huge that is?
Wow. Yeah.
It's incredible. Anyway, I'm standing there with them, and some kids come on these electric scooters, and they're zooming around on this open space because it's empty, basically. And they right away they said, "Oh, that's not allowed. You know, that's not very respectful." And she said to me, "You know, I still get choked up when I come here."
Mm.
You know, this was their sacred place, right? And she ended up having a job, her mom, my daughter-in-law's mom, working for the German government, because the Russian government wanted to find the whereabouts of some of these Russian soldiers for their family's sake. So they made an investigation, and they had people working on it with the German government to find out where these guys, you know, they were missing in action in certain places, and, you know, just to look through the records, right? And so then the German government thought, well, we should actually be doing the same thing for our soldiers, right? So then that was her job, was to find out, you know, to work with the Russian government to find the German soldiers and the Russian soldiers who were missing, and bring that news to the families, you know. And she did that for a long time.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's good. That's good. My mother's father was in the military, and he went missing in action after the World War II ended,
Oh,
somewhere in Poland. They didn't get any news of
Mm.
yeah.
him. My mother only hardly remembers him, just some pictures.
Mm.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's interesting because what you showed now, I mean, this huge memorial. I mean, every Russian city has something like that. So basically, it's supposed to be huge. It's supposed to be really like monumental,
Mm-hmm.
like the Red Square type of feeling, dwarfing feeling. So
Mm-hmm.
on the one hand, it's a real like, kind of a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it's a memory of the sacrifices, of how much people suffered, during the war. But the flip side, unfortunately, is that it turns into a cult very
Mm-hmm.
easily.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And because of its, first of all, I mean, how it's made. I mean, Stalin really did a good job of creating this huge thing, which is something that people really needed. This kind of sense of something huge that we belong to,
Right.
like an empire. We belong to this empire, and it's sort of like Mother Russia takes care of us. And
Right.
it's on the one hand, it's a good thing, but on the other hand, it's not really. I mean, it depends on what's going on in my heart.
Well, there was a
And
feeling, of this cult-likeness to it because she wasn't Russian. She was German. And
mhm,
her country was cut in half.
Mm. Yeah.
And like she never really understood. She said she never really understood her grandparents because they were always so miserable.
Mm.
I mean, her parents
Mm.
and her
Yeah.
grandparents. This is the mother-in-law. And I said to Annie, I said, "Well, they were free. They were free and they were German, and all that was taken from them when the Russians took that part of Germany, right? East
Mm.
Germany.
Yeah.
They lost everything,
Yeah.
and they lost their freedom, and they were living in this kind of this numbness that her mother sensed, right? But she was bought right into it. And after the wall came down, they were kind of ecstatic, but then scared, and then they found their way, and then they got what was really interesting was they became nostalgic for the communist government
Mm.
because it
yes,
supplied
yes.
them with everything. They didn't have to manage their own lives.
Mhm.
It was
Mm.
managed for them, right?
Well, that's exactly the sentiment. Oh, I know this one. Yeah, this is
Yeah. This
Stalingrad,
is
right?
no. This is Kiev. I saw this one.
Oh,
I've been to
Kiev.
this.
Oh,
Yeah. This is Kiev.
Wow.
Yeah. It fits very much what you were saying. With like, it's called the Motherland Monument. It feels very.
mhm.
Uh, that could definitely easily become culty. I could,
Culty. Yes.
yeah, I
Just a
could see
little
that.
idol for
Well,
you.
then there was the other Kiev monument that is just this is breathtaking in the city, and
Mhm,
everybody. There's always people out in this part of the. There's a square.
mhm,
It's like a whole square, and there's this monument on one end, and then there's another monument on the other end, and it's this big open plaza. It's much
mhm.
more kind of feels very Italian, like
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
just stunning, and people are always out there because it's just beautiful. Like it's a beautiful place to just be, you
Mhm.
know, and it's right in the city. It's very beautiful.
Mhm.
But yeah, I see what you're saying.
Mm,
Yeah, well, that was the thing that kind of shocked me about how Volker and Claudia were standing in front of a Russian monument and feeling teary-eyed and emotional. I'm like, but you're not Russian.
mhm.
And these were the conquerors. Is this what they
Yes.
call Stockholm syndrome?
Yes, in many ways. Well, it's also a nostalgia. I mean, what you said about those people, I mean, it's exactly the sentiment that Putin is using now, that we
Mm,
need
Mm,
to, because so many people of my age that were born in the USSR are, nostalgic about those good times when we had,
mm,
the government was providing, and, you know, Oh, I mean, it's, I mean, nostalgia itself is such an interesting
It
phenomenon to
is.
me,
It is. Yeah.
because it really filters out everything negative. Because if people really could go back to the USSR, they'd just be appalled in a
Mhm.
minute.
Yeah.
But the memory just cleanses it somehow, and doesn't allow the bad stuff to come.
Mhm.
My wife is very anti-nostalgia. She's just like, nostalgia is propaganda, and propaganda is nostalgia. She's like, you can't get wrapped up in that because it's nonsense. She's like, if it was so great, why did it fall apart? Right? Like, she's like, we just ignore all the things that
Yeah.
made it fall apart. You know, when we talk about,
Yeah.
oh, this time was so great. Oh, remember when? She's like, yeah, remember when it also sucked. You know, it's like it's always been falling apart. Like she's very about, like, she really has no patience for this mindset of like, well, these are the end times. Like this is the last.
Mhm.
Like, look how awful. Look how wicked. Look how corrupt. And she's just like, it's always been corrupt, it's always been wicked, it's always been fallen. It's just that most of the time it's hidden, and there's not propaganda channels in your living room, right? There's not like this cultural programming that's telling you how corrupt everything is. She's just like, it's always been this way, the world is always falling apart, everyone thinks it's the end all the time. You know, she's just like, let it go.
Yeah.
Don't
Well, like
freak
I would
out.
say,
Like, just, it is going to end for you when you die. Like, be ready for that. I'm like, yeah,
I
that's
was
good.
thinking about, or I mentioned recently with you, I think it was Jeremy, that the 60s were so great, right? We had the assassination of Martin Luther King, the assassination of John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, the Vietnam War. It was good times. Everybody forgets about that. All they ever talk about is Woodstock and psychedelics,
Right. And the moon landing. Yeah.
moon landing, and Timothy Leary.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Slack
But
is saying that to mourn the loss of a way of life that was a source of comfort when faced with a new reality that doesn't seem to care is not necessarily nostalgia. I think it's that source of comfort, a way of life that, I mean, maybe it's familiar, but not always comfortable, is my wife's point, right? It's like the familiar is easier to face than the unknown. Like the familiar devil is easier to face than the unknown devil. But she's like, but that's the propaganda of the devil, is to convince you that it was great.
Yeah.
That's her
well,
view. I kind of I see where she's coming from, but I also am prone to nostalgia, so it's hard for me.
My husband is very much prone to nostalgia. The
Yeah.
older he gets, the worse it gets.
Mm,
I just have to keep going. It's okay, honey. It's not.
yeah.
bad.
I think that one of the biggest things that makes me sad is, like, my senior year in high school, I lived with my grandparents, and all of their neighbors, they had known for 30, 40 years, 50 years. And their whole kitchen table was filled with a plate, little paper plates of treats covered with plastic and a little plastic bow, and from the, and it's all their neighbors. And my grandmother, starting on Thanksgiving, would start making fudge, and she spent like 3 weeks just making fudge all day, every day. And then there was just like this big exchange of little Christmas treats, with everybody. It's because everybody knew each other and they all went to church together, and they all, my grandparents, they had been friends with this other couple for 40 years. And once a month they would take turns hosting at each other's homes, but they would all dress in suits and dresses and make a fancy meal and light a candle. And my grandmother had this wine bottle, a Chianti bottle, that they had opened the very first time that they had a dinner together, and they lit a candle on it. And then they kept the tradition, and they would just exchange the Chianti bottle back and forth, and they would light a candle while they were eating. And it was just this monument of wax that was a monument to their friendship. It was so beautiful. And it's just like, Man,
You know,
there's just not
there's
enough
a
of that
great
in where I live. We don't have any connections to what's around.
Jeremy, you're reminding me of SCTV. Did you ever watch
Oh yeah,
SCTV?
yeah. Second City TV. Yeah, John
Yeah.
Candy. Yeah,
You remember? Do you remember the Schmingies and
yeah.
the traditional exchanging of the socks at the door?
Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah,
And
exactly.
then they had to stare at the Christmas tree. It's a joke, Eugene. It
Yeah.
was just with a
Okay.
comedy show.
That's okay.
But they were making fun of these, it was just a fictional European country, and all their traditions, And now we stare at the Christmas tree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say also about nostalgia. I'm not also prone to nostalgia, by the way. And but I was really impressed by what C.S. Lewis actually said about nostalgia in The Weight of Glory. And he was referring to some of the English poets, Wordsworth and who wrote, a lot of poems about something nostalgic. And C.S. Lewis kind of says that the thing about those poems is that when even if Wordsworth was able to go back to those times, he wouldn't have found there what he wrote about in the poem.
Yeah, no.
That's the thing, because he says basically it's the smell of a flower that we never smelled, and the taste of a fruit that we never tasted, actually. That came through that memory,
Right.
but it's not there. So basically we're like looking in through the mirror, and we have to pass through the mirror instead of defying the mirror, and then go to, it's like an icon. It can be either an idol or an icon. Everything can be either an idol or an icon.
Yeah.
So
yeah, like we were my husband and I, because we started watching some of those videos that I showed in earlier on here in the episode about some of these Swiss customs. And then this, the algorithm served me up this like 1914 colorized film from Switzerland. And so we watched it together, and I thought, oh, he's going to love this, because he's like super nostalgic. It's like, everything's so ugly. There's way too many houses, and so
I love your husband. I've never met him.
You're going to get along really well. I know it.
Sounds like it.
And anyways, and so we're watching, and he's like, oh, look at it. It's so beautiful. Isn't that beautiful? And I'm like, yeah, but see that kid in the background? Look at his legs. He's totally crippled.
But he's a beautiful cripple.
And then
he had beautiful polio, okay? Leave him alone.
He goes, oh yeah, that's awful. Look at that. Look, and he's, going down the street, and and then there's some old man, dragging his leg behind him. But yeah, it was beautiful. It definitely was. But
have you seen those crazy videos of just like a car, like an old Model T, just driving like in San Francisco back before there were any traffic laws or pedestrian laws, and people are just like constantly walking in between, and the traffic is just cars just driving along, and cars are coming in front of them, and horse carriages are coming in. Oh, it's chaos. It's wild.
Yeah.
It's really
It's like when I stayed in India there in the 80s. I was there. When was I there? 1986. And you'd be nobody had their own car, actually. Like every time I get in a cab now, I ask these Indian guys, have you, when was the last time you were in India? Oh, last year. I'm like, I heard everyone has their own car. He goes, oh yeah. I'm like, that must be terrifying. Because you only ever took a cab, right?
Yeah. And
you'd get to an intersection and everyone was facing each other, and you're just like, oh my God, now what? Light would turn green and they'd all, find their way through.
I'll see if I can find one of those Model T driving through San Francisco. It's pretty wild.
Yeah. Look, we're doing nostalgia.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I really love that what you said, Eugene, about the smell, and and you actually talked about tasting fruit,
Yeah.
right, in a nostalgic way. But
Yes.
think about it, like you were in the Soviet Russia,
Yes.
having your once a year Mandarin, thanks to the government.
Yeah. Yes.
Like,
Yes.
so generous.
When you taste it and then you're back in your memory in 1980.
Yeah, crazy, eh? Yeah, I think we're all, there's this balance, right, that we have to strike. I've been talking to a friend about these things, so it's right fresh in my mind. It's not about only fasting, and it's not about only feasting. It's about living in the tension between both of those things. It's that balance, right, that you have to strike that makes your life worth living. If you're always fasting, you're not living. If you're always feasting, you're also not living. And unfortunately, I think we're always feasting, at least in this country.
So I muted the audio just so we can show it without hopefully getting a problem. But yeah, it's pretty wild. So the car just dives in front of him, and people are walking across the road, hopping onto. Then he's gonna hop into some guy's carriage. Maybe they're friends, maybe not. Who knows?
I remember reading about how the cars were frightening all the horses too.
Yeah. Well, and one thing with nostalgia that I was thinking about is how we take our like modern life and we just project it back and go, wow, it was probably really great back then. And it's like, no, it was a completely different world. Like, look at this. This is a completely different world.
Yeah.
This is 120 years ago. This world doesn't exist. It's completely gone. I mean, there's people in it, but that's all that's similar, right? It's like, if you walked back there, people would look at you like you were crazy. No matter what you said, they would just be like, what is your problem? What are you doing? What are you saying? What are you talking about? Why are you talking so fast? Why are you talking so loud? Why are you wearing such shabby clothes? Why do you know?
Do you ever notice too the I don't even know what it's called. Maybe you do, Eugene. Like the tonality of different eras, the way that people speak. Like if you watch a movie from 1930 and then a movie from 1950, the speakers sound so different,
Yeah. My wife and I just finished watching. Well, actually, we're in the middle of this old movie, American movie. What's it called? The Bishop's Wife.
Oh, I just watched it.
You just watched? Yeah, it's a good one. I really like it.
Good one, yeah.
Cary Grant, and they do sound funny. I mean, they just I don't know if they just learned their lines like in a very strict. I mean, it's just like nobody speaks that way anymore.
No, I know.
I think some of it was theatrical. Like it was because of the ties to the theater that they had learned that style to use in the theater to project so that people could understand them. And because that's how they had been trained, that it carried over into film. As far as I understand, that's what it worked. And then back then too, the microphones were lousy. And so they had to enunciate and speak very clearly because the microphones were lower quality. And actually one of the complaints now about movies is that they're very hard to understand because the microphones, ironically, it's because the microphones are so much better now. They're such higher quality that the actors can have more nuanced performances, and so it gets lost, especially when you have a music soundtrack and stuff.
They still did have like a dialect.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
The way that they spoke to each other. There was a a
That's
dialect
true.
that just morphs, with, I don't know if it's generational, but like if you listen to any of the 60s musicians in an interview or whatever, it
That's
gets
true.
slow and it's like men and everybody's, they talk like me.
Maybe it is the influence of the theater as well, because I get a feeling, especially from this movie, that all the lines are kind of staged.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
staged lines.
In the
I don't
movies.
get the same feeling from the the recent movies. It's like they're
No.
more winged, I should say. Well,
But
even
if
though
you-
they're yeah.
But if you watch old interviews with those same people in that era, they still have a weirder way of talking. Like
Yeah.
it's just different, They'll and it changes with the times. Like it's constant. Like, do you remember when Valley Girl thing was the thing?
Yeah, and
so,
upspeak.
like every person, every girl in the bank, in every waitress, every girl in a clothing store, they had this, talk, and they were just gravelly all the time. And
The vocal fry, yeah.
I was just like, stop, like what is wrong with you? You sound like you're about to fall off the couch into a coma.
Yeah, that's called vocal fry. And then the upspeak, where they would end every sentence as if it was a question, like they would just talk about things, as if everything was a question. Like, I don't even know what you're trying to say right now. It's it drives me crazy. There's still some YouTubers who do it, and I just can't even stand it. I just turn it off. It's like, no, I can't stand
it. But
that
vocal, gravelly, whiny, like disinterested, nihilistic. I just thought, oh, we're in for trouble when I heard that the first time.
Yeah, I won't pull it up because it'll definitely get us a copy strike. But Connie Chung, who was a news anchor from the late 80s, early 90s, she did a piece on upspeak, and it was hilarious. She was really making fun of it. She did not like it at all. So if you want to hear a really funny take on it, you should check out. She did a news piece on it. It was really funny, explaining what it was and like how it started. And it seemed it was, but it's an affected speech, right? And it's one of those social contagions, I think, like what you're talking about, where it's like it just becomes a fad, and then everybody starts talking like that. It's very strange.
Oh, my dog scared me. Well, Jeremy, did you want to cut it short?
Yeah, unfortunately, I do. I need to go.
Yeah.
Okay. My
well, good seeing you guys.
It's good to see you as well, Eugene. Thanks for coming in. I'm apologizing in advance. You weren't here for my pronunciation of the Russian name.
Mentioned you while he was.
I will go back.
I did apologize. I was like, I'm sorry, Eugene. I'm doing the best I can over here.
Yes.
I was talking about all the places where there's a monasteries and there's churches dedicated to Saint Nicholas in Russia.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, just on one of the streams, you guys talk about Matushka Olga, right?
Yes,
something like this.
Yeah.
Well, the right the first syllable should be stressed, Matushka.
Okay.
No, because you tend to stress the second one, Matushka.
You're right.
Matushka. It's a derivative. It's a diminutive for mother, the wife of the priest.
Okay.
So it'd be like mama.
Yeah, mama is mama, but the suffix ushka is like it makes the noun like small and cute.
Yeah.
Or in a very kind and kind diminutive sort of.
Swiss has. Do you have a lot of diminutive words in Russian?
Oh yeah, lots.
Yeah. Because Switzerland does too. Like all the German-speaking countries make fun of the Swiss because they put li or an I at the end of their words, right? So, like a girl, in German it would be Fräulein, right? And in Swiss it's Meitli. So a girl is a Meite, but if she's a little girl, she's a Meitli. And a Frau is a woman, and a Fraueli is a little woman, like a young woman. You know,
This is very
and
nice.
a
Yeah.
cat is a Katz, but if it's a kitten, it's a Katzli. And so it's always, and so they make fun of the Swiss as having like tiny words because everything has an li on the end. My husband's name is actually Uli, which is little Ulrich, right?
Oh wow.
Uli.
And you guys can keep talking if you want, but I do have to go. Thanks.
No.
Well, I have
Thanks,
to go
everyone.
too because it's late
All right.
here. Yeah.
Sounds
Yeah.
good. All right.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
Thank
See
you,
ya.
everybody.
Thanks, everyone. God
This
bless.
was fun. Bye-bye.
God bless.
Bye.